You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best, no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Live Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. So spring has sprung here in Pennsylvania. So if I sound like I'm talking to you through a sea of pollen, it's because I am. Not only do I live in one of the most consistently top-rated places in the country for the worst seasonal allergies, which is a true story. We live in a beautiful valley surrounded by mountains that are great for riding bikes and hiking, but also create a big old soup bowl for allergens to just swirl in all spring and fall long. And allergies can get worse with menopause. So double whammy there. Yay. I sound a little congested, but all is well. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about masturbation. No, really, buckle up because this week is a wild ride. I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with Lou Featherstone, who describes herself as a 50-something mom on a mission to help women of all ages be completely confident in themselves. And as the founding member of the Zero Fucks Club, she is helping others grow old disgracefully. Lou recently toured the US in a vintage Bluebird bus that she had sort of custom designed, and I will put a link to that in the show notes because it is well worth seeing. Spreading sex positivity as well as busting myths on midlife and menopause along her journey across the states. And I'm going to tell you something. This conversation was not what I expected. I mean, I expected a really great conversation about midlife sexuality and body confidence and all of those topics. But man, this conversation was about much more than vibrators and literally getting back in touch with your sexual self, though there's plenty of that. It was about the journey that we take as women in this world and how we can lose ourselves in taking care of everyone else and worrying about everyone else, and how menopause and midlife can be the perfect time to find ourselves again. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. I will put links to her website in the show notes so you can learn more about her and the companies who sponsor her that she talks about on the show, like the Fun Factory, who make responsibly and ethically manufactured sex toys, as well as Momotaro Apotheca. I always have trouble saying that one, which is a certified organic and cruelty-free vulvo-vaginal care product company. Great stuff all the way around. I hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you will. All right, before we get to it, remember to sign up for my free weekly blog at feistymenopause.com, where I distill all the latest research and what it means to you. Follow us at Feisty Menopause on Instagram and Facebook. Come and join that private Hit Play Not Pause Facebook group where we are helping each other 24/7. If you like the show, give it a little love with a good review on your podcast platform. It helps the show continue to grow, and it is, and I love you. If you want a deeper dive into all of this and some more one-on-one time with experts like we have on this show, come on in and join our Level Up membership, which you can also learn about at feistymenopause.com. Finally, super quick thanks to Inside Tracker for their support. I got a question about Inside Tracker through my SpeakPipe online voicemail box, and I thought it'd be actually great to address it here. The question was someone who was interested in Inside Tracker, but she is not a type A. She is an intuitive eater and does not want to obsess about what she eats. She has some concerns about her appetite. She has lost her appetite and was wondering if Inside Tracker could help, but she didn't want to get obsessive. I cannot say it will answer that question. If you have questions about something like that, which is maybe a little medically specific and not necessarily related to nutrition, I would go talk to your doctor. I think that that is worth a conversation with your doc. But I will say that about Inside Tracker, I am an intuitive eater myself. I do not track. I am not obsessed. And Inside Tracker isn't about any of that. They make recommendations based on your blood work. They are widespread recommendations. They're not that specifically anal. And I have found them enormously helpful. That's how I lowered my cholesterol 30 points, learning about berberine. I do not track anything. So anyway, Speaking of track, thanks Inside Tracker for your continued support. Anyway, enough of me. Let's have a few words about our awesome sponsors and get on with the show. All right, Lou, I have my seatbelt buckled firmly in place.
Good job, baby. Good job.
Because I don't know where this is going, but probably off the rails in a hurry. So why not? So I want, here's the thing. So I obviously am very familiar with your work with the menopause sex campaign. It's been well documented. I want to get into all that. But you know what? I don't know much about the woman behind Susie, the beautiful bus. Like, what was your midlife like before you embarked on this magnificent adventure?
Oh my goodness me. So different.
Big question, small question right out of the gate.
Yeah, let's just go straight in there. Oh good God. So I've been living, I lived in London. Well, I lived in Brighton, just south of London, and worked for social services, working with families in care, families who's in crisis, whose kids were about to be removed and put into the care system. I would go in and work with the families and try and keep them at home. My husband was big in advertising and commuted up and down to London every day. And we had a 10-year-old son. And I was fed up with him being on the train the whole time. And he suddenly got offered a whole spattering of jobs in America. And I was like, let's go. Come on. It's not a coincidence you've been offered like 5 jobs at once. Let's pick one and go. So we took the job in Portland, in Oregon, and uprooted and moved there. And then fast forward 8 years, I left. We separated in COVID. We went out there full of big dream and excited for an adventure and spend more time together. Only turned out he really annoyed me. I think almost immediately in arriving in America, I couldn't work because I didn't have a visa. And he had to, ingratiate himself in this new big job he'd been flown over to get stuck into. And I couldn't work. So I set about making friends, getting fit, going hiking, joining CrossFit, having lunches. I was very panicked before we left about not having a job. And but let me tell you, I settled into doing fuck all very quickly. And I will forever be grateful for that year, not because I didn't have to work, but because it just gave me this pause on life to reinvent myself, if you like, to make new friends, to build all these relationships. And I just met some really badass women and started hiking. And that had a dramatic effect on my life. And now here I am back in the UK, having driven from one side of America to the other in a vintage bus, preaching self-love and masturbation and confidence in middle age. So yeah, it's been quite the journey over the last few years. All the goods and all the bads. My mum died. My son's graduated high school, and now he's off to fly his own wings. And I've come back to the UK to spread my message over here. I found America fantastically amazing and welcoming and uplifting. I loved it. It's helped me find myself and my confidence massively, being surrounded by positivity of Americans. But it's also so brutal, the healthcare, women's rights. It's, the racism, not that it's not racist here, I would like to say. It's just all a lot. It didn't sort of sit very well in my socialist soul. I feel like everything in America is so amazing or so awful or so fabulous or so painful. And there doesn't seem to be a bit in the middle. And I found you have or you have not. And I fell into have, and that just made me feel uncomfortable about those who didn't all the time. So it kind of upset my soul a little. So I decided to just come home and take a breath and see what happens, come here with a message and bring the bus over and see what they make of it over here. And it's amazing. So Susie, who's the bus, will arrive early spring, and then I'm going to take her on a tour of Britain.
Wow.
Yeah.
How is the bus getting there? Before I ask another question about menopause, that's just like, how do you get a bus across the pond?
Very expensively on a ship, on a very expensive
That's what I figured.
My theory is my life's like a Ponzi scheme. My finances are like a Ponzi scheme of life. So I'm figuring if I invest the money in bringing her over, it'll pay me back. And worst case scenario, I can live in a in a field somewhere. It all goes up. And it's, you know, it could go either way, to be fair.
I love that. I love it. So before we get to your journey, I'm curious, like, when did you yourself reach menopause? And like, what was your symptoms going surrounding that? Are you like, where are you in that journey?
I'm pretty much on the out. Periods have stopped, and that's been 3 years now. To be honest, I was really lazy, and I stayed on my birth control pill because every time I tried to come off the birth control pill, I literally tried to stab someone. So I decided it was much safer for me just to stay on that. And then one day we went on vacation, and I forgot to take them with me, and we were gone for a month. And so I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to bleed everywhere. And I wasn't having sex because we've been married 20 years. So it doesn't really matter. And I never got a period ever again. That was it. But I did go through, I had the sweats were what got me the worst, I think. In the end, I just started to find them funny. It was always just at the wrong moment. If I was trying to make a video for Instagram, 1 minute I looked fantastic, and the next I looked like I'd electrocuted myself. My hairs were standing on end. Boring. But I have kept fit and really active and actively eaten well and spent as much time as I can outdoors. And I just, it does, of course, the rages, come and go. But I've been particularly blessed feeling okay. I've worked hard at feeling okay because I'm really not a medication girl at all. I'd rather not take anything. I was sitting with some friends this weekend, and they were swapping mushroom advice for HRT advice, and they were going. I was just sitting there. I didn't do any of those things.
Mushrooms and HRT. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I never say never, girls. Whatever gets you through. Oh dear. I mean, I've been very, very active for the last 8 years, particularly since we got to Portland and I discovered hiking and CrossFit. And I swear to God, climbing mountains with my girls has kept me, well and healthy. Actually, I was talking this morning. This is the third cold I've had since I got back to Britain, and I haven't been working out because just for one thing or another. And I started back at the gym this morning. I can't keep being ill. I haven't been ill for 8 years, and suddenly I stopped working out, and I'm full of cold and feeling poorly again. So
it definitely helps. It definitely helps. It circulates those immune cells, keeps you.
Absolutely.
So, keep at it.
But I mean, my inbox is filled with so many women with most awful symptoms, and I found I've got hornier, and I've actually found a complete reverse of lots of the horror stories that sort of hover around in the universe. And my mum got Alzheimer's at 60, so I don't know. And she got the early onset around 60 and didn't die till 70. So I don't really know. I couldn't ask her any questions, which is annoying. But yeah, I don't know. I feel very lucky. But I just keep myself very busy, so I don't notice. And I feel great. I mean, what's not to love? No periods. Thanks very much. It's amazing. I can still feel myself go through the cycle, though. I still get really horny one week, then I'm really hungry, then I don't want anything, then I can't do a poo. I still go through. My boobs sometimes just swell out of nowhere, and I'm like, what the heck? And then 2 days later, they're gone again. But yeah, it's funny. And every now and again, I just have a very random hot flush, just because I'm hot.
So let's talk about how you got on this sex positive journey. And if you maybe this is too personal, but I don't think there's a question that's too personal for you. Were you horny when you were in your marriage?
I was very horny as in my teens and in my 20s, and I was all about the sex. I'd sleep with anyone. You look at me, I'd sleep with you. I had a great time, and I'm not. I had the time of my life. It was brilliant. But I got to a point. I met my husband, and he didn't want to sleep with me. It was the first man I'd ever met who was like, "We're going to wait," and I was like, "Well, that's weird. What do we talk about? What do we do? How do I navigate this? This is very strange." it literally never happened to me. I thought it was the most romantic thing. Now, 25 years later, I'm like, maybe it was just a red flag. It's funny how you see things with perspective, isn't it? It does crack me out that. I don't know. I think it's not just him. It was both of us. Our sex life fell into complete neglect, I think. He worked crazy hours. I worked crazy hours. I had postnatal depression for a few years. He suffered from depression on and off, like most creative men do. He worked crazy hours. He was always away. Couldn't be bothered. I was the woman that was like, refused to go on a date night. I was like, if we go on a date night, if we've got to make it happen, then it's not worth doing. Like, if we don't feel like going out, we're not doing it. So I actively resisted the date night or making any particular effort to put into my marriage. I did, but we were happy. I wasn't unhappy that we weren't having sex. We just, I just figured I'd had all the sex before I met him, and I'd used up my sex allowance for my life. And we were so happy in other ways, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. It happened every now and again, and then I'd go, oh, we should do that more. It's all right. And then off we bob again in life. And it is one of my biggest regrets that we didn't make more effort with each other. And then, by the time we've neglected each other and rejected each other so many times, there's no coming back from it, I don't think. I think it's too hard for us to get that back. And then what else went on in the marriage? I was like, I don't want to shag me. I don't know so after we moved to America and I started to find my confidence in my fitness, Instagram started growing, and women were being drawn to, my fitness and lots of my, bucket attitude and take my clothes off on top of a mountain. Well, the first time I did that, we were snowshoeing and I took all my clothes off, and I put a little emoji over my bum because I was a bit nervous, which cracks me up now because everybody's seen the lot. But I got a dick pic from a man at the gym, from this young boy who's 26. I had never had a dick pic before. I was so old when I met my husband. We didn't even have mobile phones. It just wasn't a thing. And so I'd never had one before. So I sort of screamed, dropped it on the floor, sent it to all my mates. Got a dick pic from a 26-year-old. And then I'm like the worst feminist in the world, because I was like, all right, I've still got it. And I was like, hang on a minute. We're literally being validated by not even a great dick pic, to be fair. I hate that I give him this much power by talking about it, because it wasn't that brilliant. But it did change my life. But I felt horny. And I suddenly started to realize that I thought I was dead from the waist down, and I tucked that away, and it was okay. It was fine. But I started to feel more confident. So I talked about it online, the fact that I felt horny from this dick pic and being the worst feminist in the world. And a vibrator company hit me up and said, do you want to become a vibrator advocate for us? And I literally had not had a vibrator since the rabbit. Like, I mean, in my
it's like a blast from the past.
Right? I think you have to plug it into the mains. It's so old. The batteries went rusty. I mean, it's so ancient. That was the only one I'd ever had. I didn't even, in my 20s, in my teens and my 20s, if I wanted an orgasm, I'd just go and get laid and sleep with someone. I didn't really feel like I needed one, And so this big box of vibrators arrived for me to test. And just as my husband and I were separating, it was during lockdown, we decided to part, but we stayed in the same house. I'd love to tell you it was because we were trying to, consciously uncouple deliberately for our child, but we just couldn't afford two houses. The truth, it forced us into consciously uncoupling, which I actually think was one of the best things we managed to do for each other in 30 years and 20 years of marriage. But so I haven't had sex for years. I'm going into the spare room with a big box of vibrators and my marriage is ending. Well, what's a girl to do? So I just started testing the things one after the other. And I just found a whole new sexy side of me for myself. And the first time in my whole life, it was about me and not about somebody else. And I started to figure out what I liked, and I had time, and I was getting paid. I was getting paid to do it. It was even better. But then the more I did it, the more sexier I actually felt in myself, without anybody else involved, without being bothered about anybody else. Just started to find myself feeling more sexy. So I just, I started sharing it and encouraging other women to do the same, because I started to find quite power in it. And I started to find a little bit of power coming out of my marriage, which felt really was horrifically conflicting. When your marriage is failing, but you feel you're doing the right thing, so you're sort of just it's very sad where we just couldn't get our paths back together at all, and obviously he was desperately sad that the marriage was ending, and I was desperately sad, but I was also like, I know I'm doing the right thing. I just feel stronger and more empowered as I leave, which was awful and very hard for him to understand, especially with me blathering about it all over the internet, which has been incredibly difficult for him, incredibly helpful for a lot of people, and incredibly helpful for me. Well, that sounds ultimately very selfish, but I'm always very conscious about what I say about him because he's a good guy and he didn't really do anything wrong. He's just conditioned to how we should perform. We should have performed in our marriage as I was. I set about. I mean, look at us as women. We're designed to accommodate somebody else, for God's sake. We're built to accommodate other people. It's never about us. We weren't born for that. It's nature, right? And then I just thought I was just doing what I thought good wives did, and I facilitated his career, put myself on the back burner. I mean, familiar story to anyone? I don't know, any wife in the world, any mother in the world. But then it started, when things like the dick pic and the vibrators, and I started to realize quite how much I put myself on the back burner. Like whole parts of me, this whole sexual side of me that I used to love was still there. And then I don't know, I started to find just the confidence as I got older. I can't remember what age it was. I started giving so many less fucks. I just woke up one morning and just went, I literally don't give a fuck anymore. Who cares? I think it's something to do with like Oscar reaching a certain age. I could start to see the kind
50
of
was it for me.
Yeah, and I started to see my kids. I was like, you're going to be a good human. I've done a good job with you. So that was another like, good, okay. And you're now ready to fly doing your journey. Like, what do I do next? Where do I go? And I'd made the separation from my husband, but it was time to leave the house because that really had a time limit on it, the brutality. And so I bought this vintage bus, and Instagram had grown quite considerably during lockdown. The day one of lockdown, I went, I'm just going to cheer everybody up. That's my new job because my business went to shit. Renting out clothes I had a rental business that was just beginning to take off and gone. So I was just going to cheer everybody up. And I found that women were drawn to my energy and positivity, and they're desperately looking for tools to, how can I think like that? How can I be like that? How do you do that? How do you just, I mean, very simple things like how do you get up every morning at 6 a.m. and do it? And work out? How do you get up and push yourself up a mountain? How do you do these things? Things that, lots of us take for granted, end up being our superpowers, everyday things. I always laugh. So I'm like, I'm basically just an absolute idiot. No one's quite noticed that. But I've learned just to, I don't know. And the bus tour taught me this. The bus tour taught me so many things. But just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep going. And I've just sort of felt my way. And, I saw this bus and had an idea. And then I was like, I want the bloody bus. How do we get the bus? I crowdfunded the bus. I called people who supported the mission of me wanting to go out and meet women and empower them and connect them together, because I found through Instagram so many people would open up to me on their direct messages. And I share a lot of personal stuff. So, in turn, that comes back, which is privilege, can be overwhelming at times because you get a lot of strangers, deep problems. And you're like, oh my gosh, she's going to overdose tonight. Like literally, I think I'm just going to kill myself. Some of my messages are very overwhelming, and others are much more uplifting. But I was like, I feel sad that people would reach out and talk to a stranger, but then also it's easier for a lot of people to reach out and talk to a stranger. And then also, women do find it hard. You get very stuck in your day-to-day routines, and it's hard to step out and find new people and find new opportunities. I was lucky I had a fresh start in Portland, but I'm quite good at making things happen. That's my master thing. I make shit happen. And so I decided to create the tour on the bus. My idea with the bus was that I would throw events as I went around America and connect women together in their local communities. And then I would roll on to the next town and, I just create a little stir and hopefully people would find each other and then I move on. And which I did. I had visions of filling Madison Square Gardens by the time I got to New York and being the new Glennon Doyle with my infinite wisdom. And I didn't quite manage that, but I did. I did speak at a sex exhibition in Brooklyn.
So what were you actually doing? Like what did that look like? Did you have a box of vibrators? Like who, like, I mean, I know that you're affiliated with, with the sex factory, like the
Fun Factory, yeah.
The fun factory.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the lubes and that we'll talk about, but like what were you physically doing? Like what did that look like as you drove that bus? Like what were these events about?
Well, I mean, I had a vision of driving around America, with my big RV, with one hand, swinging a gin and tonic with the other, cruising, having epiphanies as I went. That did not happen. There was many epiphanies on the road, I have to say, but the bus was so big, I spent most of the 6,000 miles like this. Let me tell you, the roads of Kentucky are very rough. So most days I would get up probably super early because it was so hot. I picked such a stupid daft route. I left Oregon in June and went down to Texas and then came up to New York for October. So I went all with the heat and then I dodged hurricanes. And people kept saying, Lou, it's going to be very hot. And I was like, oh, I love a heat. I love it. I'm so tan. I literally, where was I? Arizona, lying on the floor of the bus with all the air conditioners on me going, I'm going to die alone on the floor of this bus. I'm so hot. It was hideous. So I had to get up super early in the morning and I drive probably about about 350 miles a day because the bus just couldn't handle it and it got too hot. I had to be where I was going by 11 and hope to God there was some shade that I could get under. I did have air conditioning when I was hooked up in the RV parks. But I didn't have any when I was driving. It was very hot. And then there was events in Arizona, Austin, Nashville, and then New York, and they were all different. I appeared at a drag brunch in Nashville. I went and did. I did a lot of public speaking, so I talk a lot about the journey and I do a talk about how to just switch your mindset to positive a little bit and how to find the happiness in the tiny things, because for me, life's about gratitude and the teeny tiny things that go up to make a bigger picture. There's all the big fancy things and there's all the great stuff you can do, but if you just start looking for the joy in every day, it starts to be very culminative. Is that the word? Culminative, and it builds up. And then you find yourself looking for them rather than, I was with a friend over the weekend and her and her husband are not getting on. She went, oh, he'll be home in a minute. Let's wait. I give him 10 minutes till he fucks me off. And I'm like, wow, you two have really got yourselves in a bit of like, you could see they're just like banging heads against each other. And how about you don't do that? How about you look for, I don't know, when he does something nice, let's see how long I don't know, but if you're looking for the bad things, that's all you're going to see. If that's literally what you're just constantly picking, and that's just is long-term relationship, right? One thing gets on your nerves, you probably had the same argument for the last 25 years. And so you're just waiting for it to happen again. And you're like, ha ha, you didn't listen to me last time. Here we are again. Whereas if you start to like pick out the good things, and if I'm having a bad day or I'm having a little rough patch in life and I'm struggling to see the sunshine, I have an exercise where I just write down the good things that happened in a day. And it can be everything from, I had to close the blind because the sun's shining in my eyes, or I don't know, every teeny tiny thing that had made me feel good. And if you start to list them out, you realize there's an awful lot of them. And then you start looking for them actively. And then before you know it, you're not bothered about the old, you're so obsessed with these things that you don't worry so much. The bad things still happen and the shitty things still go on, but you can balance things out a little bit more. So I just, when I got to Arizona, I've been on the road about a month, and I got to Arizona and I did spent some time there, and I parked the bus and I flew back to the UK because I had to do a public speaking event here at an inspirational lectures event, which was absolutely fabulous. And then I got invited to do a stand-up comedy show in Amsterdam. Never done stand-up comedy in my life. I was the headline act. I was like, you can't put me as the headline act. I'm not even a comedian, really. I'm just stupid. But that was an amazing experience. It was a feminist comedy show. And so I did a talk at that, and then I flew back and picked up the bus and carried on and got down to Austin. And then I was hoping to go to New Orleans, but it was just too darn hot. So I turned up and went up to Nashville and Tennessee, broke down there for a little while, and then poodled up and had to speed through your neck of the woods in Pennsylvania to get to New York. So yeah, it was a journey of a lifetime. So the events happened, but what was more interesting was a whole sort of sub tour going on. So I painted the bus. I had the bus wrapped. So when I bought the bus, I crowdfunded it to buy it, but then I approached some brands that I really love and use, because I'm a really bad influencer. I can't sell stuff I don't use and love and believe in. It's just not what I'm about. But I approached 5 brands to give me some sponsorship in return for coverage and the branding on the bus and stuff, and they were so supportive. Such amazing team of believers and like behind my mission. But so the bus is crazy. So I'm driving along. So I'd get to my stop and park the bus up, hook up, pour myself a drink, check my emails. There'd be emails from people who passed me on the road and had looked me up on Instagram. There'd be all these direct messages. Truck drivers would be driving past me. It said self-love revolution on the side of the bus. And then I'd park up. Obviously, I was always the talk of the RV park because I roll in and people are like, what on earth is that? And then about 6 o'clock in RV world, everybody kind of comes out of the RVs and has a little walk around. They get the dog and a cocktail and they go for a little tootle around the RV park. And this is the most fun. So up come, the couples are strolling by, it's a couple, and the husband will go, like, bus, what is it? And I'm like, that's a 1983 Bluebird Wonder Lodge. And they go, wow, okay. School bus conversion? No. Anyway, then I wow them with my mechanical knowledge of my bus. Of which I now have quite a lot. And the wives go, well, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I've just left my husband and I'm driving around America to try and encourage middle-aged women to step out of their comfort zone and try new things and embrace confidence in middle age and the menopause. Without fail, every wife high-fived me. Oh my God, yes. And the husbands are like, step away from the woman, step away from the crazy woman who's going to lead you astray. Don't talk to her. So funny, the men were terrified. But then also, a lot of women, so many women, I had no idea. I mean, I'd watched Nomad, of course, but I had no idea how many women are living out on the road in their buses by themselves, in trailers and buses all over the country. It was like being in the movie. It was in Arkansas. I found 3 women in one campsite, all dying of cancer without any health insurance whatsoever. They'd just gone there to die. I found in another campsite, there was a woman who got herself a boyfriend who kind of isolated her from all her family in another state and has her sort of pretty much held prisoner. And she went, I saw you arrive and I Googled you and I felt like maybe you could give me some advice. And she just came knocking on the door. I came home one night in Austin and there was a woman bleeding. Her boyfriend, a Trump supporting arsehole husband, had beaten her up. So she stayed with me for 2 nights while we found her a shelter. And we nipped and got her husband went out to work and we went and grabbed all her stuff and the dog, and then she hid at mine so we could get her in a shelter. But of course I didn't put this on Instagram because I was like, what if I get to the next campsite and I'm black? I don't want to be talking about these people's deepest, darkest, worst moments. I don't want to stop people coming and talking to me at the next site. So there was this whole thing going on, as well as everything, all the jazzy bits that were on Instagram. And, I put a lot of the real stuff and a lot of my emotions on there, but it's not my place to be sharing other people's story at the time. So yeah, it was quite, I would still be driving. I would still drive. I would still be driving. If I had the money, I would just have kept going, just like a roving agony aunt. I'd just keep driving till I couldn't afford it anymore. But it really highlighted, everybody's need for connection. We need connection. And I think, particularly as women, I think the internet's been great for us. The internet's been great for women. And I think marginalized groups to have a voice. And we found each other, particularly I think in midlife, such a community of midlife warriors now going, yeah, and it's helped. Me Too helped us all wake up, Black Lives Matter's woken as well, not as many as it should have done, but it's been such a few years of awakening for us. And I think, it's the devil in the deep blue sea. I mean, the old internet, isn't it? Everybody compares themselves, and it's not all real life. You still can't help yourself, getting trapped in it. But I think it has helped us find a voice in a different way.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what you make look so easy that is not easy. Like, so many women, I mean, aside from a lot of the real dark hard life stuff that you have talked about, like a lot of women, part of their lack of confidence and insecurity, especially at this time of life when so much of our power is given to us by culture for what we look like, and it prizes youth and it prizes that time of life, and that is, we are empowered, quote unquote, by culture for that. So when we reach this point and we start, getting wrinkles, our body starts changing and all that stuff, like it's petrifying for a lot of women, and it's devastating for a lot of women, because this power that this culture has is bestowed upon us for whatever, now we feel like we're losing it, and we feel like some odd sense of shame, and this, we're not comfortable in our skin anymore. And you appear to be very confident in your skin, and you take off your clothes on a ski slope and I see you with a bottle of champagne running with your ass like hanging out through the field, and it's awesome. But like, was it a process to get there? Like, how are you helping? Because I think like we all could benefit from just being like
Go for
this is,
it. Go for
yeah.
it. I've learned every time I go for it, something good happens. Every time I step foot out of my comfort zone, I still go, oh, should I be running across a field? Does anybody really want to see that? And no, I'm fairly sure they don't. But it's more, I'm an extreme, it's not, you don't have to buy a really expensive vintage bus and drive around America in extreme heat. But what I try to do is lead by example, go, look what's possible. Look, I'm all about, look what's possible. And who gives a shit? Who cares? 4,000 people laughed at my ass running across the field yesterday. So if it made someone smile, then great. Someone said to me before I left for the tour, when you get to New York and I say to you, was the tour a success? What's your measuring stick? And I don't know. The one woman that I helped into a shelter, the one woman that was empowered by seeing me crying because I was on the side of the road and I wanted to give up hope, but I didn't. I stuck with it, and here I am. The woman who is trapped in a relationship of sadness and can't see her way out. Maybe, something I do will inspire her to do that. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Sometimes it's just encouraging another person to get out of bed who's suffering from depression. I spoke on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I had a message from a woman going, I wept and I wept and I wept because I don't throw away a comment. Like, I've suffered from postnatal. I had 2 years of chronic postnatal depression, and it has affected me ever since because of decisions I made during those 2 years. And I look at my son and pictures of me when he's a baby, and I feel nothing but shame and sadness for the first 2 years that I just can't. I could find no joy in it at all. But the way I talked about it made her realize that that's what's going on for her. She's like, I just felt alone, and I felt like I'm going mad, and I've been spending so much money, and now I'm hiding it from my husband, and it's all spiraling. And just by me saying, it made her understand. So, sometimes, in that podcast, actually, I confessed, I talked about stealing money from work. I got fired for stealing money from work. I'm a terrible shopaholic. And I've never talked about it publicly before because I'm, obviously it's a shameful part of my past. I've come to peace with it, but I still feel a great deal of shame about it. It was an incredible learning lesson for me. And I accidentally blurted it out in a podcast. And I was like, oh. And they said, is there anything you want editing? And I went, you know what, just leave it in. It's time. I need to talk about it. Maybe if I talk about it, I'll feel better. And oh my goodness, my direct messages were full of women, all living with shame around finances. And that is very woman heavy because as partners, in the old constructs of things, there's still more relationships. The husband is the brain breadwinner, and we all compromise ourselves in those new relationships, that new configuration of family when you have the kids, who goes back to work, how to make it work, who's in charge of the finances, and the finance so complicated. But it unleashed my inboxes, just went wild with women and so much shame. And I feel, for the first time, I feel so not alone. I thought it was just me who was a complete idiot with money, who just constantly and consistently through my life made really dumb choices. And it turns out I'm not alone at all.
You never are.
You never are. But it just, when you share your, I don't know any other way. People are like, you're so inspirational. And I think, it's not that I don't mean to be, of course, but I'm just, because I'm normal, but I'm prepared to say it.
So
I
you're
don't know.
burying yourself is really burying yourself. So like, I mean, I think that's
Literally.
what, like, I actually wouldn't be talking to you if you were just taking off your clothes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I
No,
mean,
no, no. That's
you wouldn't be interesting to me, and no offense, but it's just like,
no,
that's not,
no, no.
yeah, but
It's a very small part. It's such a small part of it. It's such a
right,
small
but
part of it. It's all,
it's small and it's big all at the same time, because when I see what you were doing, you are clearly like, yes, you're comfortable in your skin, but like below you, like everywhere, like it radiates out, so it seems more of a symbolic thing that you're doing, just like, here I am. And I think
does it matter? Does
right,
it
we
matter?
all could really benefit from that, whether or not we put on, pasties and swing around a pole in New York City. Like, we don't, like, it doesn't need to go there. But like, just being like, I think when you like, we're so harshly critical of ourselves in every single way,
Mm.
and just to sort of be able to lay bare and be like, this is me, and you know what, like, it's beautiful, this is a beautiful life, and this is a beautiful part of this journey, and look how far I've come, right? And look how,
Mm-hmm.
like, free yourself,
And
you
I,
can too.
and it's important to me that I show all sides of that. So you'll find as many videos of me crying my bloody eyes out as you will of my ass running through a field. It's very much part of it. It's all of it. And I love my Instagram. My Instagram is just actually, it's just my journey. It's my journey. It's very personal. It resonates with different people for different reasons. The lecture that I talked about, that I flew home to do last summer, the Do lectures, I talked about, they said, don't do a talk you've not done before. And so I talked about the vulnerability of sharing online, all these things. And, the old saying, you stick your head above the parapet, someone will take a shot. And I remember coming into Texas thinking someone's going to literally shoot me. I'm here with my vibrators and my marijuana and my, come on, girls, running around naked. This is going to go terribly wrong. My father was like, I can't speak to you till you've left Texas. You're going to get shot. And I was so scared. I found more power in meeting the people that I didn't agree with than I did of anything, because we bubble ourselves into our little worlds, don't we? Someone says something we disagree with, and we block them, we unfollow them, we defriend them, and we craft ourselves and surround ourselves by only the people that we agree with, which is great and safe, but nothing much happens in there. You can preach to the choir all day long. It's the conservative people, who I need to just go, you know what, you don't have to run naked through a field wielding a vibrator, but you can stand up for yourself. You could stand a bit taller. You could love your body and not care. It doesn't matter. Does it matter? Are you judging my ass as I rush across the field? Of course you are. Yes, you are. Or maybe I'm inspiring you to go work out. Who knows? But I had
How
such
much of how much of that, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but how much of that,
no.
because it does sound like taking up hiking and taking up CrossFit, and this is obviously an active podcast, for women who are active in many ways, or have been, or still
Mm-hmm.
want to be. How much of that is like really informed where you are, and helped you along this journey?
Oh, absolutely, Matt. I wouldn't be where I am without hiking and CrossFit. It literally, those little challenges. I was talking about finding little things in every day. I started CrossFit and I started to realize that, I turn up, there's a real pattern. I turn up at CrossFit, I'd look at the WOD, at the workout, I go, I won't be able to do all of them, it's 45 of them, I'll do 25. And lo and behold, before 7 a.m., I've surprised myself. I've achieved that, and it's not even 7 a.m. I've got up, I've managed to get up, get my ass to the gym, do the actual damn workout, and it's not even breakfast time. So what could happen for the rest of the day, holy only knows. Oh, sorry. Who knows what the possibilities hold for the rest of the day, And those little things, they started to really mount up. And then, oh, bear with me, sorry.
That's okay. I'm a
Uh,
good editor. She
sorry,
can
I
cut
just
this out.
I just needed to plug you back in. I was running out of juice.
No worries.
Um, um, and the same with the hikes, you know, it was like, oh, let's just challenge ourselves. We'll be a little bit faster this week. We'll go a little bit higher. And, you know, I'd invite people, I'd put it all over Instagram. We had straight, you know, each week was a different bunch of women. We'd meet at the coffee shop by school. We'd drop the kids at school, meet at the coffee shop. Everyone had to bring something to share for lunch and a can of hiking wine, which is wine in a can. And then we'd hike to the top of the mountain. My fucking husband, stupid kids, bloody work, blah, 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 blah. Neck a can of wine, share some beautiful food, and then all the way back down again and be back at school to pick the kids up. And then come winter, we started snowshoeing, and then we wanted to get a little bit more adventurous. It was about hardcore of 8 or 9 of us. We walked the rim to rim of the Grand Canyon. We walked, you know, round Mount. We've done Mount St. Helens more times. You can shake a stick out. We've gone round Mount. We've done so many mad adventures together. And we did have this, you know, there was about 4 or 5 expats in the group, all living overseas. So we kind of had this magic. It was like this magic extended girls' holiday. You know, you're gathered together with common purpose, like your workout group, or you're achieving something. There's a sense of magic, and you only know if you're kind of in it. We were all just determined to. We knew we'd never be friends. We're not going to live in the same place for the rest of our lives. This is a magic moment. We were determined to make most of it while we had the chance. By God, we did that. I mean, I won't. If I get knocked down by a bus, I'll be like, oh well, you know, you could be. I hope everyone would just be, well, she lived the best life. Like, you know, there's not much. Of course, there'll always be things I want to do or achieve or climb or conquer or whatever, but it's fine. As long as I'm wearing a good outfit, I'll be fine with getting hit by a bus. So, but the power of women is so amazing, isn't it? It's just phenomenal. I just love it. I always, when I'm organizing events, I go, well, people always go, well, women, what's going to happen? I go, well, to be honest, women usually, you make a space and women come, they take care of the rest for themselves. I don't ever sort of structure anything too much because it will always just take, you know, you start one conversation and that's it. Women, you know, won't stop talking and it takes care of itself. So yeah, I just think women are magic.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. So I would like to talk a little nuts and bolts, just because, you know, I know you're obviously a huge proponent of vibrators and, you know, that whole experience. How do you think that, you know, I mean, there's still like the stigma and shame surrounding that, and you know, there are some vaginal changes that can happen too during this time that makes things sort of like hurt, you know, and we do talk about like vaginal estrogen and sort of, you know, ways that you can take care of that. But like in your experience and in the work that you have done with women, like how do you think that this actually does benefit them? And how do they
I
get
mean,
into
there's
it? Do they find barriers to it? Like how do they get over those
oh
barriers?
yeah. I mean, it blows my mind. I mean, I have my personal journey, and then as I've talked about mine, so many women living in very similar situations. I mean, sexual, you know, the neglect in marriage is so common, I think, of each other. And lots of women, so many women living with shame or trauma from the past, and find it incredibly hard. You know, so many women never had an orgasm by themselves or with a partner, don't touch themselves, so ashamed of themselves or so afraid of themselves and don't know where to start. You know, for every liberated woman, there is, you know, there are women who don't know where to start. And so it really varies. I found and literally have found it's like working out, right? The more you do it, the better you feel, the better you look. And it's that. Somebody went, oh, I just don't even know where to start. And I went, please just start. Just start somewhere. Just start with your finger. There's some amazing resources online. Particularly if you've lost your mojo, you know, it could be like me, you know, used to be all sexual active and it was all great and brilliant, and you've let it go and you just want to find it again and get a bit of a kickstart. There's some great websites out there. There's a really great website called beducated.com, and it's basically sex education lessons. So you can subscribe to it, and there's everything from a squirting workshop for the, you know, for your more, you know, your more advanced users, to literally a guided meditation so you can find your way around your vulva and figure out your bits. A very gentle guided meditation. And I did it. I was like, goodness sake, I think I know where my clitoris is. Oh my God, it blew my mind. This very basic, just it literally talks you through where to put your fingers and stuff. You just close your eyes. But making that time for yourself is so, so important and so precious. And doing it for you as well. I mean, vibrators are not just for you alone, like get your partner involved. And there's so many different ones on the market. You can, lots of, I always recommend there's a really good one that sucks your clitoris. There's quite a few of them around. It'll stimulate just the clitoris. So some people find it really off-putting, the sort of putting it inside. So that's a really good place to start. And you can just go super gentle and just see how it feels and see how your body feels. But then you start to find your confidence with it and start, oh, I like that. Oh, I thought of that. And then that's great if you're partnered and you want to try some new stuff. It's very, very, it can be simple. It can be very overwhelming also. So the Beducated website is one of the best resources, I think, out there. And then a lot of sex toy companies have some amazing resources on their website, really basic beginnery stuff. And there's lots of very beginner-friendly stuff. But also, actually, there's scientific, and that's what Love Mama Tarot and Fun Factory are working on. There's proof that there's some types of vibrator, like one particularly that Fun Factory has developed, its pulsing actually does increase. It does work on increasing the natural lubricant within your vagina and your vulva. So actually, as you do get drier in menopause, and that can be a worry, and it can feel like it hurts a little. Good lube, always good lube. Please God, always just good lube. It'd be helpful. And then Love Mama Tarot do some great products for vagina wellness. So, if you is upset from taking the hormones or you're finding it's particularly dry, they have some amazing supplements. There's tinctures, there's suppositories, and regular use of those can build up the juice a little bit again.
And it's good for your pelvic floor health too. I mean, if you look at some of what's happening there, some of what's happening is you're losing blood flow, like the little capillaries in there. And if you do start using those muscles and using that area again, you are like helping drive blood flow and circulation back too. Yeah.
I mean, let me tell you the saddest story of all. So, just started on the vibrator journey, and I ended up in a sex shop with a friend, and accidentally bought a huge vibrator. It was called the Big Boss. I don't know what I was thinking. It was very ambitious. Anyway, went home, decided to have a little evening with this vibrator, put the light on, had the music on, set the scene, went to bed early. Couldn't get the damn thing in. I was like, hang on a second. I can't get it in. I can't get it in. I literally went to the OBGYN the next morning with the blooming thing going, I can't get it in. And she was like, she said, oh, you've been sexually active? And I was like, well, no, I've been married for 20 years. No. And she said, well, you might need to start smaller and work your way up again. And I was like, but my ex-boyfriend. And she said, but if you're not using it, it's a muscle and it contracts. And I'm like, you telling me that my vagina is closing up? And she went, it's closing up, but yeah. And I went, well, that was a pivotal moment in my life. I went, well, things have got to change. Okay. And I was shocked. I mean, it's like everything. The more you do it, the more confident you feel with it. And that can only help if you're looking for a partner or you've got a partner. Who doesn't like your partner with a little, little confidence? It's nice when you see your friend walking around with a new, little pep in her step. My friend's just on her vibe. I've been plugging the vibrators to her for ages, and she left dinner early last night. She's going home. I'm just going to go home and have a wank. I was like, my work is done. Oh, dear. Oh.
I don't know where to go from that. I mean, I think that might be...
Sorry.
No, I mean, I often stop the show at a mic drop moment. I'm like, well, that was just one.
Maybe that was it.
I guess is there? I mean, I keep, because I'm such a dork, and I always have to go back to like the literature. But what you say is actually true. Like when I went to the North American Menopause Society conference, I was really surprised by like all these sort of like dilators. Like they have like sort of like dildos that you can progressively expand, and it is for that. It's for like women who have not been active for a long time. It does it gets it. I never thought of it as closing up, but I mean, it does get less elastic in that way. Let's put it that way. And it can
Mhm.
be painful. And so like starting, with a product that sort of helps re-enter, pun intended, just to kind of
Mhm.
like get everything going again is not bad advice, because if you go right out of the gate, you're like, okay, I'm on board, it you might be setting yourself up for a little frustration, and that's not what we're looking to do. So,
Mm-mm.
yeah, thanks for
Mm-mm.
sharing that.
It's a long, it's a, yeah, and also I discovered there's no great race to the orgasm. It doesn't have to be about your orgasm. It could just be about enjoying your body. Again, I went through, obviously I take a lot of pictures of myself for Instagram, and I'm always videoing myself changing clothes and stuff, dancing around in my knickers and things. But I often, I take sexy pictures for myself because I just feel sexy. There's an amazing audio on Instagram, and it's from Schitt's Creek. Oh gosh, what was her name? Moira from Schitt's Creek, and she's like, take 1,000 naked pictures of yourself right now, because I tell you, not too many years from now, you will look back on these pictures with much kinder eyes and go, God, I was amazing. And I literally love that so much. So I take loads of sexy pictures of myself and like, oh, I look banging. I work hard for my body. I feel sexy in myself. Whoever gets this next is going to be very lucky. But now I'm very discerning over who gets it. You don't look at me. I'm not just going to sleep with you because you looked at me anymore. I'm in my prime here at 52. Who knew that was going to happen? So it's going to take somebody quite special to take up the other half of the bed, because quite frankly, I love the bed to myself. And my marriage might have lasted longer if we got separate bedrooms earlier, to be fair. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lou, for everything that you're doing and for sharing yourself here on the show. Is there anything that we have not talked about? And I can't imagine there is, but who knows, that you would like to leave the audience with?
I know. I'm terribly sorry. I know you sent me
No,
you
you're
sent me a list
amazing.
of
Like we
things
we covered it
before, and
all. Don't
you
even
said
like
it
it was
said
amazing.
please be try and be direct with your answers. I'm like,
I
oh my
did
god.
not say that. I would never say that. I would never
Joking.
say that.
I'm teasing. I'm joking. Oh, dear, I do go on. I do apologize. I don't know. Just, you know what? Try something new, try something different every day. It doesn't have to be every day, once a week, set yourself a little challenge, just try something different. Wear sequins to the supermarket and see what happens, see if someone talks to you, or see if you feel differently. I enjoy, my outfits is a massive part of what I do in my fashion. I enjoy the attention, I enjoy the chats that it brings, I enjoy the people that it brings to me, I enjoy opening up my world, I enjoy meeting people I don't agree with, because I just find that fascinating. You don't have to dislike these people, but if we understand each other, then at least, we're making some progress, even if we don't change much. If we understand each other, I truly believe that helps. Try and find something positive in every day. And when you have a bad day, it's okay. Go get in bed, pull duvet over, and start again tomorrow. Fuck it. Who cares? Does it matter? No. Just roll with it. Just keep going. Just keep swimming. And if you feel like you're on your own, talk to someone. Just put it out there. Blab about it on the internet. Call a friend. And I promise you'll feel less alone. Especially as we navigate this new chapter of our lives. And it can be the most exciting one if you want it to be. You've just got to make up your mind. Do it.
Amen. Well, that's our show. Come on back next week for a special hormone therapy episode with Dr. Carla Di Girolamo. We sit down and discuss the current state of affairs where women are getting prescribed 2, 3, sometimes 4 times the recommended doses of hormone therapy, the value or not of hormone testing, and generally just try to cut through the noise and bring clarity in this increasingly confusing space. So come on back for that one. And until then, as always, stay feisty. You've been listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. The show is edited and produced by the strong, talented, and amazing women at Live Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause. And please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag @FeistyMenopause. Share the show with your friends
And please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.